So thank you for joining. We've discussed in prior sessions the importance of setting up your business and making the right entity choice. We've also reviewed how to track your expenses and how to think about tax planning. And so now that we've outlined all of those topics and you, by this point, have determined your cash flow and how to get your cash flow, we want to talk about how to use your after-tax cash flow for investments. We've done some surveying and a lot of responses have been basically that people want to know how to save for retirement. And it's very difficult to answer that question simply because it's such an individualized topic. But we wanted to provide you with some tips and best practices that will hopefully help in your plans to save for retirement. So we generally, like I said, it's a very individualized topic, but we wanted to provide you a rule of thumb. So I'm going to share our slideshow. Just give me a second. Let's do share screen. So our general rule of thumb when it comes to saving is the 50-30-20 rule. And it can be useful once you've assessed your income. As discussed in previous sessions, it can help you simplify allocating your cash flow. So for example, and as you can see here, the rule is that you want to spend 50% of your income on needs, 30% of your income on your wants, and 20% can be allocated to your savings. Your needs are, of course, your basic food, clothing, shelter, and utilities. Your wants could be dining out instead of cooking, going out for entertainment, so movies, tickets to a show, tickets to a baseball game, whatever, vacations, etc. And then the last 20% of your income should be allocated to your savings. This is where retirement savings comes to play. The savings portion of your income can be allocated within a mix of different savings vehicles, such as regular savings account at a bank, but it could also be the portion that you are saving toward a retirement plan or your investments. So before we go into detail about your saving strategy, I'd like to just show a quick example of two individuals' incomes. I know that some of you may be very early on in your real estate career and some may be very well established. So here's a basic comparison of applying the rule of thumb to someone who makes $100,000 a year versus an individual who makes $2 million a year. If you're making $100,000 a year after taxes, you can potentially be saving about $20,000 a year. Contrarily, if you're making $2 million a year, you could potentially be saving $400,000 a year. Again, everyone's everyone's situation is different, and the rule of thumb is simply that it's just a guideline. It's not meant to be exact, but it could be applied to almost anyone at any stage. So now that we understand how much you should or can be saving, I want to explain again that the savings portion of your income can be applied in various ways. You can be saving with a plain checking account or savings account, or you can be saving by investing within a retirement plan or a separate investment account. The two main benefits of saving within a checking or savings account is that you have the option to elect a high yield checking or savings account as an interest bearing vehicle. And the second benefit is having cash availability. A regular savings account may earn you less than 1% a year, but a high yield checking or savings may be earning you close to 5% right now. This may be a great option for someone who wants to have cash on hand for a large purchase coming up, but still wants to be earning some sort of interest on dividends while it's not being invested. Again, the second benefit of having cash availability is that your money is liquid. You can withdraw it at any time when you need it. So if you have an emergency, it's not tied up, you have access to it. With the example I gave comparing a person with $100,000 of income versus $2 million of income, the individuals are at very different stages of their life, obviously. So it may very well be that the lower income earner needs more access to cash because maybe they're saving for a home they may be the type of person to allocate most of their savings within a high yield savings account because they may need that money within the short term. Whereas the higher income earner, again, may be more settled or established, and the 20% that they're saving from their income is allocated more towards other investments or within a retirement plan. So I'm sure many of you know that in speaking with Joe or Brenna, that one benefit of having a retirement plan is to be able to deduct contributions on your tax return. So Joe is going to jump in here for a few minutes to discuss that in a little bit more detail.
Right. Thanks, Brenna, or Serena.
Right, all right.
I just saw Brenna's name up there. Sorry about that. At any rate, yeah, your retirement contributions are a deduction. It's a deduction that you have on your tax return that would reduce your taxable income and thus reduce your tax liability. So what does that mean? It means that if you want to put some funds into a retirement account, and let's say you're in the 30% tax bracket, and your tax liability is $100. Then if you want to get your tax liability down to $75, which means that would be a $25 savings, then you can contribute $83 into a retirement account. Because of your tax rate, that deduction, the $83 contribution, is a deduction to reduce your taxable income. At the 30% tax bracket, you'd have a $25 tax savings. So that would mean that you would just need $58 that you would need to come up with extra cash to put into the retirement account, coupled with the $25 tax savings for the total of $83 in your retirement account. And your tax liability goes from $100 down to $75. So yes, you're coming up with an additional $58 in cash flow, but your tax liability went down by $25 to $75. But this $58 that you put into the retirement account is actually $83 in retirement funds for you for the future. So that extra $25 that you would have paid in taxes really just shifted over from the government's pocket into your pocket. So what that means is the government subsidized some of your retirement savings. So that's a positive thing. Another thing dealing with retirement accounts is the timing of when these contributions need to be made and how you can benefit from that timing difference, that cash flow game plan, if you will. So individuals, they can make a contribution into a retirement account, a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, which a Roth IRA does not have any tax benefit. It's not a tax deductible expense. It's just an after-tax contribution to a retirement account, which does have its own merits and benefits. But those accounts, traditional and Roth IRAs, need to be paid by 4/15. But if you have a business and you operate as an S corp, a partnership, even a Schedule C on your individual return, those entities can use what's called a SEP or a defined benefit plan, 401k with a profit sharing plan, where the 401k piece is different, but the profit sharing component of it would follow the same rules as the SEP and the defined benefit plan, which have due dates of the business tax return, including extensions, which means that that contribution can be made in September or October, depending on the type of entity. So what this enables us to do is you have an individual return that has a lot of estimated payments made, and you could do an analysis to figure out if I contribute X amount of dollars into my retirement account, I'm gonna get a big refund. Let's just say arbitrarily, you're gonna get a refund of $25,000 if you contribute X amount of dollars into a retirement account, but you are short $25,000. What you're able to do is extend the business return at 3/15, and then come 4/15 with your individual return, you filed the return with the information as if you made the entire contribution to the retirement plan, which you haven't done yet. And then you get the refund from the IRS. And you use that $25,000 coupled with the other amounts of funds that you have and make the contribution into the retirement plan by 9/15. So now what you've done is you just filed a return, got the money from the IRS, and used the IRS funds to make that contribution after you filed the returns. And all that is a great strategy and plan where you can use cash flow planning to be able to benefit yourself tax wise and future retirement benefits.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. We briefly touched on saving in a savings account, and Joe discussed the benefits of saving in a retirement plan. So now we want to explore investment strategies. When you work with a financial advisor, you want to make sure that they are looking at your portfolio as a whole. So if you're working with a CFP or a certified financial planner, they'll likely take you through the 7 steps of financial planning before they recommend any particular investment strategy. So as you can see in the slide, steps 1 through 4 of the financial planning process are specific to you as an individual. Your advisor will take these steps to really get to know you as a person and your individual financial circumstances. This could take weeks, sometimes even months to complete, depending on how complex your situation is. After working through the first 4 steps, that's when an advisor can say, okay, great, now I understand who you are and what your goals are at this time, and I can recommend a specific plan of action for you. So these are the steps of the financial planning, but it ties right in with your investments. Step 5 is when your advisor would be making an investment recommendation. So we like to emphasize that this does take a significant amount of time, because as advisors, we do have our due diligence in making sure that we look at your investments as a whole, so that what we recommend does not overlap with existing investments or create extra unnecessary risk in your portfolio. One thing that an advisor will do is make sure that you're not over concentrated in any particular sector or industry of the market. We often find, for example, that people that work in real estate are often overweighted in real estate investments. And while real estate is a great investment opportunity, don't get me wrong, especially for you guys, like Joe mentioned, you're able to take deductions as real estate agents that wouldn't be available to others. It's very important to diversify your investments. So
Very true.
there are many benefits to investing in real estate, but there are so many more benefits to diversifying your portfolio to ensure that you're not over concentrated in any one particular investment. So some examples are, you can have a significant business risk exposure to the fortunes of a single company for those of you who are invested solely in your company stock. And this isn't just in real estate, we find this everywhere. People who work in tech, the healthcare industry, you name it, they purchase their company's stock, put it to the side, and then don't make any other investment. So for real estate agents, on top of that, you might then be purchasing a physical investment property for rent every month, and that exposes you to even more sector risk, among others. So there are 2 types of overarching risks when you make an investment, that's systematic risk or unsystematic risk. And this can be an entirely separate discussion, but just to give you an overview, systematic risk includes purchasing power risk, reinvestment rate risk, interest rate, market and exchange rate risk. Examples of systematic risk would include business risk, financial risk, default, political or liquidity risk. There's many risks that you can be exposed to with any investment, and each investment can be exposed to multiple types of risk. The key is if you diversify your investments, you're essentially diversifying and mitigating or decreasing your risk exposure, and that's always the goal. It's important to note that everyone does, of course, have different tolerances to risk. Some of you may be more conservative, others are much more aggressive. And no matter what your tolerance is, even if you're a conservative investor, it's important to know the risks you're exposed to and how to mitigate them. You might not even realize it, but for those of you who are real estate investors, you own company staff, you own investment property, you work in real estate. This is the riskiest type of investor you could possibly be. It's the equivalent of putting all your eggs in one basket. So again, we want to send home the importance of diversifying your investments and monitoring their sustainability as your needs and goals evolve. And we always urge folks to reach out to your advisor if you have any concerns. And, you know, we're always here to answer questions if we can be helpful in any way.
Yeah, I want to point out, it's really important that any plan, any discussion that you have with financial advisors, that the conversation that you have with them and the first 4 steps of this wheel here, that there's a lot of communication, a lot of discussion, a lot of learning from the financial advisor side, as well as your side individually. And the importance and the recommendations of what's happening here is definitely tied to how much you contribute to the conversation and how much they're educated in who you are, what your goals are, and what your your risk tolerance is. You know, as you move forward through this wheel, and again, I'm saying wheel, it's it's representative of a wheel, and the reason why is because it comes back in a circular motion. It overlaps and goes back to the beginning, because you want to monitor what's happening with your financial plan. You want to make sure, have my goals changed? If they have, what has changed? Why has it changed? Is there a life change? And what is that life change? How is it going to impact me going forward? So then you reassess and you look at the goals and you change those goals. So you always want to make sure that your financial plan is flexible. And that's something that we always look at, even from a tax planning perspective, being flexible with your business operations. And so, so we're in a position to change and move as the events change or the market changes or what have you. The same thing occurs with your financial planning. And it's very important to make sure that you do diversify. You do make sure that you can, there you go. Make sure that you're doing really well in the beginning of your career. Small amounts make huge, astronomical differences in your retirement years down the road. Investing, financial planning is a long-term plan. And if you're there trying to, chase investments, profits, and stuff like that, you more than likely do not succeed. So you want to make sure that it's a solid diversified investment strategy that you, even if you're putting a little bit in at a time at the beginning of your career, as you move forward and you save for those expenses that you will have 20 years down the road, when, say, your newborn child is going into college, the little amounts that you put in at the beginning can pay for those expenses that are very large at that time. And then you're able to put more away after those expenses. So I just want to say that saving is a very important thing. It doesn't have to be huge amounts all the time. A little bit goes a long way. And looking and talking with your tax advisors to put together these saving opportunity and these different vehicles in conjunction with your tax liability and tax calculations can put you in a better place and could save on those liabilities that you can direct towards your savings. So all of these things are interrelated and they're very powerful, along with the other things we've discussed throughout this year to make a very robust company and savings and future for yourself.
For sure. It doesn't look like anybody has any questions at this point. Joe, any final thoughts?
Shout out to AI.
For sure. Again, if you guys have any questions, or you think about something and you wanna reach out, feel free. But in the interim, that's our presentation and that's our, investing this or that seminar.
Does that Brenna Sherwood guy have anything to say?
No, I think you guys covered everything. It was a 10 out of 10 presentation.
Love
No questions.
The best.
All right, guys, have a great day and we'll talk soon.
Salud.
Bye.
See you, everyone.